It's a magical kingdom in a mixed up world. You're in the sweet spot, baby. You're in the sweet spot, girl. You're in the sweet spot, darling. It's a magical kingdom in a mixed up world. You're in the sweet spot, baby. You're in the sweet spot, girl. You're in the sweet spot, darling. It's a magical kingdom in a mixed up world. It's a magical kingdom in a mixed up world. It's a magical kingdom in a mixed up world.
Welcome to the Sweet Spot. My name is Lynn, your host, and Ken's my co-host. Ken, how's it going?
Oh, it's going. Lynn is going. I'm really indifferent towards this episode. No, that's not true. I am looking forward to this episode. So thank you for having me.
Yeah, I'm glad you could join me. Ken and I are both former comedians. No, we are both former Disneyland Custodial cast members, and we talk Disneyland. We also are authors of the book Cleaning the Kingdom series. We have 2 books out. One came out in 2015 and one in 2019. And you can get both those books on Amazon, Kindle, and the audiobook through Audible for the first book. And now we have both books stocked back on our website, signed by Ken and signed by me. And I will mail those out to you. If you order them, you can go to thesweetspot.com and you can order those. And I have a deal on there now where you could order both books for, kind of get a little deal to have both of them on there. And shipping is included on that price that's on there. So go check that out. Also, I wanted to mention real quick that I was fortunate enough to be on a podcast that I listen to, and we've had on our show Mark Bricky from Disneyland for Designers podcast, and I was on there and had a good time talking with Mark about my time at Disneyland and just some other things. It was fun. So check that out. Go over to Disneyland for Designers and check out all his shows there. He does a good job. Also, Patreon. I mentioned in our earlier, that we have a Patreon that we do a bonus show once a month, and we talk about just different topics, just a variety of different things that Ken and I do that's extra from this show. And we send those out to the Patreons that give $5 or more a month. You can go over to Patreon and search The Sweet Spot, or go to our website, thesweetspot.com, and click on the Patreon link. We'd love to have you join us on those. We have a lot of fun recording those, and you may not want to miss those. All right, well, we have a big show coming up.
What episode is this, by the way?
Oh, yeah, I didn't even mention that. It's 307, Ken.
Oh, what?
Yeah.
Oh, no wonder you didn't want to tell me. That's hard to believe.
I know. We have a guest tonight. Who is our guest tonight, Ken?
Well, we have David John Marley. Mm-hmm. And he is also known as Dr. Skipper. Yeah. He had a couple of stints as a Jungle Cruise skipper, and he's actually an author, too. He's got some really great stories, so I'm looking forward to hearing from him.
Awesome, yeah. Yeah, I am too. I've read his book already and really enjoyed it, so now I'm excited to be able to chat with him. So I think you guys are really going to enjoy that. But before we have that, we're going to have our current events. Now we're going to have the current events. Ken, what do you have for us?
Well, Lynn, there's a few things happening, believe it or not.
Oh, really?
Well, Disneyland finally started taking reservations for being reopened. And here's the story from April 16th in the Orange County Register from Brady McDonald. It said Disneyland reopening day reservations sold out with a very important asterisk. And they said advance reservations for the reopening day of Disneyland are sold out for both single park and park park hopper tickets, but there is still a way to get into the Anaheim theme park when it returns after an extended coronavirus closure. Ding, 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 ding. And the article talks about it. You know, the people were waiting literally all day.
Yeah.
In some sort of virtual queue, you know.
Hours and hours.
Demand has been extraordinary for tickets and reservations for the first 2 months of dates at Disneyland and DCA. Fans that logged on to the Disneyland website at 8 a.m. on Thursday, April 15th, waited hours in a virtual queue for the privilege of purchasing tickets and making advance reservations. Many mouse heads have been staring at a message saying their virtual wait is, quote, more than an hour, end quote, all day long. Yeah, so later in the article it says, as you may expect, ticket sales and advance reservations for Disneyland and DCA are extremely fluid. That means reservation dates can sell out at any time. Check the Disneyland reservation calendar for the latest availability. Now, this is new to people, especially, well, Disneyland goers anyway. So, laughingplace.com has an easy step-by-step guide to getting Disneyland tickets and reservations. Unfortunately, you know, one of the restrictions right now is Californians only. I mean, can you imagine?
Ooh.
There are people flying into LAX from all over the world. Mm-hmm. They're flying in all over the country, all over the world. They're sitting next to people on airplanes, and they're flying into LAX. They're hanging out in LAX. They're doing whatever. They're going to restaurants. They're doing different things, but they can't go to Disneyland. So that, I don't know. You know, I don't make the rules. I'm just reporting it. But, you know, even with the reservations, what attractions are going to be open? That was another big story, was which Disneyland and DCA rides will be open and closed when the parks return. As Brady reports, well, this is back from April 6th. He said Disneyland and Disney California Adventure will return with many but not all of their 80-plus rides, attractions, and shows when the Anaheim theme parks reopen later this month after a year-long coronavirus closure. Ding, ding, ding. Disney has confirmed 5 rides and attractions will return when the Anaheim theme parks reopen on April 30th, including Rise of the Resistance and Millennium Falcon Smuggler's Run in Star Wars Galaxy's Edge. Disney has warned that certain rides and attractions could be unavailable when Disneyland and DCA reopen. Several notable rides remain closed when the parks reopen, including Finding Nemo Submarine Voyage, Matterhorn Bobsleds, and Buzz Lightyear Astro Blasters, and Grizzly River Run and Golden Zephyr. Jungle Cruise will not return with the park as the boat ride undergoes major storytelling updates to remove negative depictions of Native people. The existing version of Splash Mountain will return when the park reopens, with the Princess and the Frog transformation happening at a later date. Mm-hmm. So you can still go be traumatized by Splash Mountain. And there's a list. I mean, these stories have a list of what's open and what's not, you know. So
I was thinking just now, maybe we will go over this list and talk about it in a little depth for our bonus show. So if that's something that interests you, Ken and I do a bonus show once a month for our Patreons that give $5 or more a month, and you can sign up on that on our website or go to Patreon, search the Sweet Spot. But I was thinking that we could talk about this list and, you know, maybe discuss, you know, maybe some of the changes that might be there. We can kind of speculate a little bit on it, but and talk about maybe some of the restaurants and things that I noticed that are closed, and maybe some of the reasonings, because I have some ideas on why certain things are closed, and they're not all COVID related. So I don't think so.
Yeah.
Anyway,
it's a conspiracy, I tell you.
Yeah, it is.
They're working on the basement of those places. Let's see. The official Disney Parks blog has that story. But here's the thing. Okay, the official Disney Parks blog, rather than saying, well, gee, you know, some stuff is not going to be open, they wrote it very cleverly. This is from Michael Ramirez, and I think it's very clever. The headline is Attractions and Entertainment Reopening Details for Disneyland Resort Theme Parks. And he says, there will be plenty of magic to go around in different and new ways, including surprise appearances by favorite Disney friends. Plus, most of your favorite attractions will be available at both parks for you to enjoy. As we've noted previously, select attractions and certain experiences that draw large group gatherings, such as parades and nighttime spectaculars, will return at a later date. See full details on Disneyland.com. But so it's going around saying, hey, when the park is open, you can do things like this. And here's an example. Hop aboard the wildest ride in the wilderness on the high-speed Big Thunder Mountain Railroad at Disneyland Park, a Disneyland Park favorite, taking you past spires and buttes and into tunnels and shafts of a dark and mysterious mine. If you prefer to rock out with Rocket, groove along to the tune. Groove along? Is it supposed to be groove, or is it probably?
I think it's groove. Yeah.
Oh, I think they misspelled it. Oh well. Groove along to the tunes and Rollin' drops on Guardians of the Galaxy Mission Breakout and Disney California Adventure. And it's a really extensive post with all favorite. Okay. Greet beloved Disney friends with a wave. Favorite characters may be spotted throughout the day waving to visitors, to visiting friends, posing in the background of photos, and having fun playing in the parks. That's another way of saying you're not going to get up close to the characters.
Right. I see what you're saying, yeah.
So, it's like, hey, Thunder Mountain's a cool attraction, because they don't want to say, by the way, this attraction's not going to be open.
Matterhorn's not going to be open, yeah.
So it's like, isn't this neat? So I thought it was a very clever approach to handling it, because it's a long entry, so. So laughingplace.com also has the list of, the attractions, shops, and dining locations that'll be open. So if you want to click through, check that out. By the way, go to thesweepspot.com where you can find our show notes, and you can find all of these and link through, and you can read them all in full if you really want to. And that way, you should be, websites like Laughing Place right now are constantly updating with what's going on with the ticket sales and reservations. So that's, because I know that you stay tuned to our show to get stuff like that, but our show comes out, every 2 weeks for the big show, and we have every other week in between we have the mini episodes. So we can't keep you constantly updated on those things. So that you'd have to check a place like Laughing Place, but Disneyland will open Avengers Campus in June. After a year-long delay due to the pandemic, the new Avengers Campus-themed land based on Marvel superheroes will open on June 4th at DCA, according to Disney officials. So, of course, that weekend is sold out now, by the way. That's right. Yeah. Disneyland initially set a July 18th, 2020 opening date for Avengers Campus just a few days before Disney's Anaheim theme parks closed in March 2020 as the COVID-19 pandemic, ding, 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 first threatened the United States. The opening date for Avengers Campus had been pushed back to an indefinite coming soon, and then coming in 2021 until now. Avengers Campus appears to be nearly complete based on aerial photos of the 6-acre themed land, with work continuing at a steady rate during the coronavirus closure, ding, 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 of DCA. The first phase of the new land will open with a Spider-Man dark ride, Doctor Strange special effects show, Ant-Man and the Wasp restaurant, and Marvel character meet and greets and rooftop shows. A second phase will open at an unannounced date with an Avengers e-ticket attraction. Well, we hope anyway. The existing Guardians of the Galaxy Mission Breakout indoor drop tower ride will serve as the anchor for the new Avengers Campus. The backstory of Avengers Campus envisions the land as a former Stark Industries secret complex that has been redeveloped by Iron Man's Tony Stark as a training ground for the next generation of superheroes. The time is now, and the place is Anaheim, California. The Marvel superheroes that will populate the land are conscious of the world around them. Avengers Campus isn't locked into any particular timeline in the Marvel Comics or the MCU. The snap in Avengers Endgame never happened. Iron Man and all your favorite Marvel characters are free to come and go from Avengers Campus as they please. The open-ended storytelling approach gives Walt Disney Imagineering and Marvel Studios the ability to adapt to new Marvel movies and react in real time to new Disney Plus shows. So, yeah, and the official Disney Parks blog, of course, also had that story. And it's...
Don't you think it's weird that, I mean, the, what is it? The Mission Breakout? Don't you think that, I mean, I guess the new land's obviously gonna connect right there at that, where that gate is, but it seems kind of weird. It doesn't seem like it's part of it. Like, I don't know, I guess we'll have to see when it opens.
Yeah, I have to see how it actually plays out, you know.
Yeah.
It says here in the Disney Parks blog, you may even have the chance to witness Spider-Man swinging into action high above Avengers Campus with gravity-defying acrobatic feats never seen before in a Disney theme park. I don't want to be negative, but to me it seems like one of those things that has a risk of going away kind of fairly early. You know, when they just go, you know, we're tired of maintaining this.
I hope not, but I know what you're saying.
You know, it's kind of like the falling rocks in Indiana Jones, you know. But maybe if they made Spider-Man out of ice, he can fall on the ground and shatter. People would freak out for a second. It would traumatize the kids. And of course, Laughing Place has a story about the Avengers Campus. So they said, when it opens, the new land will be home to an exciting new attraction, Worldwide Engineering Brigade, which, as you can probably guess based on the acronym, will take guests on an adventure with your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. The second attraction will eventually open that will allow guests to board a Quinjet and take an adventure to Wakanda and beyond. And again, we hope. So, yeah, Avengers. I'm not really... I guess I'm not real. I don't disparage people or look down on people who have gotten into Marvel, but it's just I just haven't really had the time and interest to do it. So I defer to others and say, if you're a Marvel fan and you're happy with it, that means it's successful, and as far as I'm concerned. So, but anyway, here's another story: how the Haunted Mansion will change when Disneyland reopens. This is from Brady in the Orange County Register. Disneyland's Haunted Mansion renovation brings new draperies, carpet, wallpaper, and decor inside the attraction, and fresh paint and plants on the exterior. The Haunted Mansion will return with the April 30th reopening of Disneyland, following a year-long COVID-19 closure. Ding, ding, ding. You know, basically the 30th, that means we're going to be right. Then our next main episode, we'll really be talking about this. The 999 ghosts that call the Haunted Mansion home had a little help from Disneyland art director Kim Irvine and the Anaheim-based Walt Disney Imagineering team that worked on the attraction's renovations. A changing portrait that may be familiar to longtime Haunted Mansion fans will be rejoining the portrait gallery between the elevator and load station in the attraction queue. The April to December portrait shows a lovely young woman age instantaneously. A folding room partition now hides the ride load area, encouraging riders to notice the April to December changing portrait before boarding their dune buggy. So, the regular version of the mansion, not the Nightmare Before Christmas. The loading area used to be mostly dark, and there wasn't much to look at, which I think might have been to get you to concentrate on preparing to load. But now there's going to be some more stuff to look at. So that's.
Did you see the videos?
I did.
Yeah, looked pretty good. You were just saying that the wall on the right was never really anything to look at. So
yeah, it's good that they're willing to invest in doing these things to attractions that have been around so long. You know, they could just say, "Yeah, we're not gonna do any work on it." You know,
They didn't need to. No, they didn't need to, and no one would complain. But
so that's a good sign. You know,
Mm-hmm.
a new cat statue next to the April to December portrait is based on a discarded Haunted Mansion concept art created by Disney legend and Imagineer ex Atencio. One eye of the cat statue will occasionally glow red. Eagle-eyed Haunted Mansion fans will want to keep an eye out for the new floating wicker chair in the seance scene, a dollhouse that has been added to the attic scene, along with a smattering of trinkets belonging to Constance, the Black Widow bride. The outdoor pet cemetery will feature subtle planting enhancements designed to reinforce the storytelling taking place in the attraction's outdoor queue. So, of course, the official Disney Parks blog also covered that, as did Laughing Place. So if you don't, you know, there's limited access to the register, folks. You know, you have to subscribe to see all the stories. So if you can't do that, then, you know, check out the links to the Disney blog or the Laughing Place. The Carousel Theater, the King Arthur Carousel. So even more beautiful, King Arthur Carousel at Disneyland Park. That's from the Disney Parks blog. And as they say, you'll be delighted to discover a brightened version of the carousel, sparkling with 14-karat gold leaf accents, vibrant details, and bold colors. Each steed was hand-painted and more than 30 colors were used, with each horse slightly different from one another. Some of them, I guess, are going to sport tattoos now, but riders will, both young and young at heart, can look forward to finding their perfect mount among the 68 leaping horses. They're going to let the horses have their manes at different lengths and everything. It's going to, they're going to have some of the horses are going to have earrings. But I remember they really did a major renovation way back when I was working there and you were working there. They basically rebuilt the darn thing. So, I mean, it's
that was
been
right around the 50th, right? Somewhere in there?
Yeah.
I can't remember exactly.
So but, you know, these are older structures that get used constantly, so they need a lot of tender, loving care. Mm-hmm. Laughing Place covers that story as well. And the other big story that broke, that was covered widely, is that Disneyland adopts, quote, gender-inclusive hair and dress rules for employees. Disneyland will allow employees to choose from gender-inclusive hairstyles, fingernail styles, jewelry, and theme park costumes that provide more flexibility of personal expression in a major change to the theme park's dress code. Personal expression, Lynn. That's what being a cast member is all about. It's about personal expression, isn't it? The change to the Disney look dress code will guide how cast members show up to work. All references to gender have been eliminated from the Disney look guidelines. Under the policy changes, all cast members can show up to work in the gender-inclusive costume of their choosing. Previously, the Disney look guidelines had specific rules on the length of men's hair and sideburns. Men could not wear nail polish in the past. Can you believe that, Lynn? They couldn't wear nail polish. They probably wouldn't even, they probably still won't let cast members wear powdered wigs. I can't believe it. Disney famously did not allow mustaches and beards on men, a policy that has since changed. Previous Disney look guidelines include specifics on female hairstyles and color. Hairstyles still must be of a naturally occurring hue. Bright pink, green, and blue hair is still not permitted. My gosh, they're in talk.
Not yet.
Not yet. Well, they need to. I mean, come on, let's be inclusive here. I want to see multicolored mohawks, okay? And nail polish must be of one solid color with no charms or adornments. The changes to the Disney look policy also address tattoos. Deplane. All cast members can now have visible tattoos, provided they have no offensive language, symbols, or nudity. Well, here's the problem. Not everybody knows what every symbol means. So you're going to really count on managers to know what... Anyway.
All the symbols? Yeah.
Tattoos are not permitted on the face, head, or neck, and they can't be larger than a cast member's hand. So get your hand enlarged, folks, if you've got larger tattoos. Inclusivity was added to the previous 4 keys: safety, courtesy, show, and efficiency, that are taught to cast members during Disney Way orientation training. I figured inclusivity was part of courtesy, but I guess if they want to call attention to it separately. And of course, laughingplace.com covers that story with all the details. And my comments on it, I have a prepared statement that I'm supposed to stick. Never mind. But
and then I have the apology statement afterwards.
Well, no, this prepared statement makes sure that I only say the correct thing. Well, there you go. I mean, they've been relaxing standards over the years. It used to be the no facial hair. Then they said, okay, you can have a mustache. And then it was like, okay, you can have a beard. It used to be, in the early 90s, they still said, if you were overweight by a certain amount, they said, we don't have costumes that fit you. And then they relented on that because in the 90s, Americans got much larger. I
just think that, it's funny. I was thinking back to when I worked there also, and I remember there was a manager on a shuttle, and they pointed out my sideburns were just below my earlobe, and so you're gonna have to probably trim those. I didn't even know who the manager was, but it was some other department. And I'm thinking now, like, it almost seems like anything goes, and I don't know if that's a good thing or there's plenty of people out there that I've seen online that are really excited about this, and that's cool, but not everyone has to be excited about it. We're allowed to also have opinions that I think, at least in my opinion, I don't think it's a good thing. I mean, some of it I think is good, but I think some of it's not going to set apart, because Disney was always set apart from like Magic Mountain and Knott's, and now now with the visible tattoos and all these different things going on, I feel like we're kind of getting away from what makes them different.
Right.
But again, I'm older. Maybe I need to get up with the times. Maybe I don't know. I always I still like to shave almost every day. And keep a clean look. It's just something personal that I use, but I guess not everyone has to. But I don't know about the tattoo thing. I mean, I know that nowadays I'm not against tattoos, but I just feel like there was a reason why they didn't, and now, because a lot of people have them now, it seems like it's more acceptable now than it ever was to have them. I don't know. It kind of rubbed me the wrong way in a way, but then some of the things, I don't need to go into why some of the things I liked and some I didn't, but it just felt like they're kind of downgrading their morals in a way, maybe.
Well, the standards, I think.
The standards seem to be going down? I don't know, but then some people might go, no, they're going up, so... Yeah. I don't...
They're making it easier for... Well, more people can be cast members,
which is good, because they probably, if they need more now, I don't know what the status is now, but which it could be why some of those things aren't opening, the list of things that aren't opening, but if they don't need them now, they're definitely going to need them in the future, because I think there's going to be a big boom in theme parks in the next 2 years, but
well, the whole idea of the Disney look is to not distract from the show. You know, you in theory, you should be able to be a cast member in Tomorrowland or on Main Street or in Frontierland without being without distracting. You know, that's like the hair color thing. You know, you would not have pink hair if you were working
Frontierland.
You know, Frontierland or whatever. Maybe in Tomorrowland, but yeah. So,
I don't know. We'll see how it works out, because I don't think everyone's going to take this and run with it. I mean, there'll still be people that stay to the old standards.
And it's kind of like the alcohol thing. You know, you kind of change with how society is changing. Tattoos are not, you know, back when Disneyland opened, of course you wouldn't, you know. Yeah. That would be for the carnivals and things like that. Yeah. But times have changed. You know, my wife has a tattoo. I don't think it'd be visible. It's. I don't think there's any costumes that expose the navel. But she has a tattoo, and you know, she's a very straight-laced woman. You know, so
yeah. That's surprising. I mean, not not that she's straight-laced, that she has one.
It's okay.
Anyways, I think that hopefully no one is offended by our opinions. I think if they are, I don't know, everyone needs to kind of loosen up, you know, accept everyone's opinions and not just the one side. But I'm okay with it. Just let's move on and open the park and let me go there. So, it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out. And if anybody has felt like they couldn't work there because of something, you know, I'm glad if this changes it and they can say, well, now I can work there. You know, I mean, it's been quite restrictive in past years. But anyway, the park is reopening. So what we want people to do is make their plans to go, or they can go to Walt Disney World or Disney Delaney in Hawaii. What they want to do is contact our magical vacation planning partners, and that's concierge.com. That's CONCIEARS.com. Go to concierge.com to book your next getaway Disney vacation. They focus on Disney, okay? So they know everything that's going on. They do the research. They do the heavy lifting for you. It doesn't add any cost to your vacation. It's a no-brainer. As I've said before, I sent my own mother to concierge.com. And if I ever take another trip to Florida, you know, in Walt Disney World, I am going to use concierge.com. So go to concierge.com, book your next Disney getaway vacation with them. Tell them that the Sweep Spot sent you, and you'll get a special gift. So go to concierge.com, everybody. Thank you. Sounds good. Thanks a lot, Ken.
Hello, everyone. It's Mike Renfro with Concierge, and welcome to the D180. While Ken and Lynn cover all things Disneyland, in the D180 we take a spin around the rest of the Disney universe, and we do it in 180 seconds. So let's jump right in. In the D180, we of course normally skip over Disneyland, but I'd be remiss if I didn't add a note of excitement for this past week as well. In a Disney travel universe focused primarily on Disney World for the past 8 months, mainly because there's not anything else to focus on, we culminate this long anticipated week with a mass Disneyland rush. The excitement is real as many people now finally have active Disneyland tickets and park reservations to go with them, which is just beyond exciting. So while I personally broke my record for longest Disney wait time on the 15th, with a call lasting somewhere around 8.5 hours, it was still amazing fun to be working with Walt's original park again. So congratulations to everyone who booked up for the reopening. It's going to be a joyful reunion. Now let's head over to where we always start and talk Walt Disney World. As my friend Eric Johnson mentioned on the last D180 episode, preparations for the 50th anniversary are still well underway. But there is plenty of excitement to enjoy prior to those festivities, which will kick off on October 1st. One great experience that was just announced is the Epcot International Food and Wine Festival. This not-to-be-missed event is perfect for ladies' weekend, a getaway with the guys, a romantic retreat with your special someone, or even a cultural experience for the entire family. Slated to start earlier than normal this year, most likely due to the anniversary, we're seeing the festival kick off on July 15th, which is just a few short weeks away. So don't hesitate. Get out there and enjoy a few of the highlights like Emil's Fromage Montage, which is a global kind of experience with cheese. They're bringing back Remy's Ratatouille Hide and Seek, which is a wonderful scavenger hunt. All new souvenirs to take home, spirit jerseys, baseball caps, and more. And don't forget to listen to some of your favorite music that'll be performed by Voices of Liberty and, of course, the Jammin' Chefs. Now let's move across the pond and take a look at Adventures by Disney, who just announced bookings have started for 2022. And a special $500 savings per person will be available to those who book select adventures before the 15th of July. With more than 24 destinations on 6 continents, there'll be no shortage of options available for your family in 2022. And this year, Italy is high on our list. Travel through the old world country steep in rich traditions and glorious history, while you immerse yourself in the timelessness of its remarkable culture. The best thing about this new adventure is it provides a private guide for your family at each of your destinations, which will include Rome, Florence, and Venice. Whether you're making pasta while tasting wine on a Tuscan farm, or creating your own Carnivale mask with the help of skilled artisans in a Venetian local shop, this is truly going to be a trip to remember. Lastly, we finish off on the island of Oahu at Disney's Aulani Resort and Spa, where we're excited to hear that Character Breakfast is returning to the Makahiki restaurant on May 7th. While there will be some adjustments to the experience for health and safety of the guests and cast, the experience is sure to offer great times for fans of Mickey Mouse and his friends. Some songs and entertainment will be provided as the whole gang joins Auntie and Uncle for this delicious 3-course breakfast. Entree options will include the macadamia nut pancakes with Tahitian vanilla sauce, or the Hawaiian-style locomoco with hamburger steak, all accompanied by pastries and fresh seasonal fruit. And of course, for your younger guests, an optional Belgian Mickey waffle or red velvet mini waffle is sure to bring a smile to their face. In the end, it's wonderful to see character interactions back at Aulani, and breakfast at Makahiki is the perfect way to kick off your island morning. Well, that's 180 seconds. I hope you enjoyed our quick spin around the Disney universe. If you'd like to learn more about these Disney adventures or have a few questions, please come on over and visit the Facebook pages and websites of both The Sweet Spot and us, their official travel planners, concierges. We look forward to planning something special for you and your family. I'm Mike Renfro, and this has been your D180.
Okay, David, I wanted to ask you, did you grow up going to Disneyland, or was that something that you did later as you were closer to working there?
I grew up going to Disneyland my whole life. I grew up in the beautiful town of Orange, California.
Cool.
And growing up, I had to be in the summertime, we had to be in when the fireworks went off. That was our notice to be inside. And even in the winter. So when the 7:30 fireworks went off, we had to come home. So that was always my signal. So we lived that close to Disneyland. So we went as much as we could. Yeah.
And that's somewhere that Ken and we grew up, in Southern California, going to Disneyland as kids and teenagers and all that.
Yeah. And you were APs.
Yeah.
Or what?
There you go. Back when they had those.
Right?
Yeah.
I'm the king of good timing. I had annual passes for years, and I hadn't had one for 5 years. And I thought, you know what? I should get one. I bought an annual pass a week before the park shut down.
Oh no.
So
Oh my God.
I was making payments all during the year. I'm like, I'll just keep making the payments. It's okay.
Yeah.
And so they just sent me all my money back.
Oh no.
They're like, sorry. Yeah. I got great timing.
Well, Hopefully they'll bring him back sometime in the future.
Right?
What
Maybe.
what kind of led you to working there at Disneyland, and about when was that? Like what made you want to apply?
My I'd always liked it. Always thought it was cool. A guy in our neighborhood in Orange was one of the railroad conductors. That was his full-time gig, was being a railroad one of the engineers rather.
Yeah.
On the trains. And so it was always just a cool place to go. My dad was actually an executive for Baskin-Robbins ice cream in the 70s and 80s. And in the 70s growing up, they had all those like crossover promotions with, Disney would put out a movie and Baskin-Robbins put out an ice cream named after the movie or whatever. And so he would get tickets. So we used to go all the time, and I liked that. But what got me, and I put this in my very first Skipper Stories book, when I was 8 years old, my sister got her driver's license when she turned 16. And one of the first things she wanted to do was take me to Disneyland for the day.
Oh.
So she took me there. It was like in the middle of a school day and everything, but we took the day off. And I remember virtually nothing about that day with her, except for one moment at the Jungle Cruise. We were getting ready to go on the boat, and we were the first people in line to be on the next boat. And the skipper was talking to me, and he's like, "So where are you from?" And I said, "Orange." He's like, "Oh, why are you here today?" I said, "I don't know. My sister just brought me." And he looks my sister up and down, and then he gets on his knees and nudges me and goes, "Be careful. She's going to ask you for something." And while that skipper was kneeled next to me, I thought, this is what I'm going to do for a living. I'm going to be a Jungle Cruise skipper. And I told her that I was 8 years old. I'm like, this is going to be my job when I grow up. And it was always my life goal to be a skipper.
Wow.
And so I made a nuisance of myself. And I was always my goal. And then in the mid-90s, I was getting ready. I was going to Cal State Fullerton for grad school. And I got accepted to go back east to get my PhD in history. That's how I got the nickname Dr. Skipper.
Ah.
I knew I had 6 months before I left to go to DC, and I may never come back to California. So I went down to Disneyland and got hired as a Jungle Cruise skipper. Just made a nuisance out of myself till they got me trained at Jungle Cruise. And then I came back again a second time when I moved back. My last job in California and my first one 5 years later, both working at Disneyland. And the second time I got to come back for 3 years, and it was great. It was a blast.
Wow. So the first time was 95, you said?
96.
96.
It was the spring and summer of 96, yeah.
Okay. And were you hired right into Jungle Cruise, or was that something that you had to...
No. I was hired into like West Side Attractions, and I was doing things I now later learned to hate. I was doing parade guest control, and I was doing Indiana Jones guest control, because the lines would reach out to the hub.
Oh, yeah.
So I was dressed, like Indiana Jones, but also like a skipper, and I would just stare at the boats going by all day long. And one day I was working, it'd been like maybe 3 weeks, and I was getting a little, tired of not being a skipper. And the manager of the guest control guys, I guess, got tired of me complaining about wanting to be a skipper and how much I hated doing all these other dumb things. And he goes, "Come on." And he walked me in the back by the in-between where scheduling used to be. And he marches me in. He's like, "Get this guy on the Jungle Cruise." And they start scheduling through, and they said, every weekend, every training shift is booked for the next 3 months. And so the guy has the screen up, and the lead leans forward, "Here, get rid of that guy. Put his name in instead." And I remember I said the guy's name. I watched them move the cursor, and they deleted the guy's name and typed my name in.
Wow.
And like, right, we train next week. And I just remember thinking, wow, that guy's life just, I should give him a free copy of my book or something. I ruined that poor man's life. So I took his spot at Jungle Cruise.
Well, hopefully he got it later.
Right? Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
That other guy now runs an animation company. No.
Right? Yeah. He's a billionaire, and his whole life goal is to find the man that denied him his chance to.
Yeah.
You're the villain in his story.
I am. I thought I was the good guy. Turns out, no, I'm the Joker. So, oh well. I'll take it.
Well, cool. So you finally got to do it, and how did the training go?
I loved it. I got there at the end of an era called narrations, when they tried to do all have fancy speeches and costumes and things. And so I got there right as that was dying out. But I just remember I had the script. I read it backwards and forwards, and I was just a little giddy A student, and I was just so happy to be there. Yeah, the training was easy for me because I was really anxious to do it. Yeah,
That's cool. How long was, I don't know what it is now, I can't remember, but how long was training for that at that time?
at that time it was 3 days. It was right. Yeah. So, yeah, 3 days, and it was 2 morning shifts and then 1 night shift. And yeah.
And
I
then
think now they expanded it to 4.
they let you kind of go on your own eventually because they probably shadow you or something, or you shadow them, or.
Yeah, they changed it because I got retrained obviously when I came back in 2002, and then I got to be a trainer, and all the things they did in '96 they were no longer allowed to do as trainers in 2002. They were big no-nos.
Oh wow.
Well, you know how you start your first book out with the story about running behind the cars at Indy?
Yes.
Like that kind of thing. Like a lot of my friends went and did that. They were, somebody dropped a purse, I'll be right back, and they would run over but when I worked there in '96, they would train us how to drive the boats, and then they would just have us take deadheads on our own. And our trainer would stand in the jungle and watch us drive by on our boats all by ourselves. Then when I came back in 2002, they're like, no, you're not allowed to drive this thing by yourself until you're signed off and it's all legal. And yeah, it got a lot more serious.
Right.
Yeah. But in my research, I found out in the 50s and 60s, your training was like an hour. They're like, here's how you drive the boat. Did you learn the script? Good, go. And they would just like send them on their way. It was amazing how little training they had. It was quite surprising.
Wow.
Yeah, things have gotten a lot more formalized over the years.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, there was something that happened in 1998, and then something again in 2003 that just kind of brought the state in, and they wanted everything much more strict and all that. So.
Yeah.
Well, so you're on the Jungle Cruise. You finally got to do your dream job. Was it all that you thought it would be?
Yeah, it was awesome. Only working there for like 5-6 months just left me with the taste to really want to go back. And so when we moved back to California, my first job back was actually at Disney, was actually for entertainment. A friend of my wife's was a show director for Disney, and so she hired me to be one of the performers and tour guides for the opening of California Adventure and the Grand Californian Hotel. And then when that was over and there were no more gigs, I switched over to attractions and became a Jungle Cruise skipper and was there for 3 years, and I got to do everything I wanted. It was heavenly. I loved it.
Cool.
Yeah.
So you came back 2003. And you stayed until 2006?
No, I came back in early 2002 and left in late 2004.
Okay. So
almost all 3 of those years.
Yeah, so Ken and I were both there with working at the same time then.
I saw that. Yeah, I saw that. We were all there at the same time. Yeah.
I'm sure we crossed paths somewhere.
Right? Yeah. None of my boats, but there were plenty of other boats I saw that had, we had to call custodial on.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I probably walked across those rocks over there by Aladdin's Oasis or whatever.
Yeah.
And in defiance of, I don't think custodial's allowed to do that now. I don't know. It's just, we used to go anywhere and everywhere, and that was it.
A friend of mine yelled at Cynthia Harris for walking across the rocks when she was president. From his boat, he's like, "Hey, don't walk across the rocks!" And she stopped and turned and went back.
Oh no!
And the lead is like, "That was the president of the park."
No hug for you.
No, right?
Not getting a hug from her.
Yeah. Yeah, we were we were just annoying about certain things. That was one of them. Those were our rocks, and anybody, especially if it was a security guard, for some reason, if a security guard, because they were very boastful about it, we would all just yell at them until they stopped. So we had authority issues, I guess.
Seems like Jungle Cruise is it's like a fraternity in a way, you know?
Yeah, I've interviewed over 100 skippers so far for all my various projects, and two words that come up the most are fraternity and shenanigans.
Yeah.
Two most common words. Yeah.
Were you part of any of those?
Yeah, in '96 I was pretty much a good boy, but when I came back in 2002, my second stint, I was all kinds of trouble. But at that point, I was in my early 30s, and I was finishing my PhD, and I was teaching like at Cal State Fullerton and Fullerton College. And so what I discovered later was I got away with murder because they never suspected me. They're like, oh, it's one of these kids. Oh, not Dave. You know, he's married. He would never.
Yeah.
He would never do this. And my last summer there, 2004, they did an update of the spiel. I got hired to be one of the skippers that got to help update all the jokes. And so they had an Imagineer come down and managers, and they all rode my boat. There was like 6 of us that were part of this team. And they said, okay, do your regular spiel, just how you normally do it. We just want to hear what you do every day. And I went, okay. And the only joke that I did that was on the script was the backside of water. Other than that, it was all my own or stuff I got from friends. And the lead was like, you don't do anything on the script. I'm like, no, this script is awful. He's like, but you don't get complaints. I'm like, because I don't swear. I'm not doing inappropriate material. I do stuff that fits the jungle. It's just my own stuff because this script is awful. And even when I was training people, I had to read the script because I couldn't remember what was in it because I didn't think it was that good. So
did they keep any of the stuff that you brought up at that time? They
did, yeah. The one joke that is in there that I'm the proudest of, I didn't actually write. It was a joke that had been around for a while, and we all loved it, and we wanted to get it in the script. So, and I found out one guy claimed he wrote it, but then I found out no, it had been around a couple years before he even showed up. So I got that joke in the script, and someone said, "Oh, I did that joke you wrote." I'm like, "No, I didn't write it. I just made sure it got on."
Yeah.
Yeah.
What was it, or what part was it?
The best thing about it is we sat back in a room in TDA, the big yellow building in the back, in this conference room, and we would pitch jokes, and everybody would laugh. And I said, "Okay, I got a joke for the rhino scene with the rhinos chasing the guys up the pole." And I do the joke, and you ready for the joke? Okay, here it comes. You will give me the same response they probably did. I said, "Here's what you say when you pull up and you look at it. You say, 'Wow, look at those rocks. Man, that is a lot of rocks.'" And one of the skippers goes, "What is that? That's stupid." And they went on to the next topic, and I got really upset. I said, "That joke kills." And we were getting ready to go to lunch. I said, "Okay, at lunch," because they let us dress like in business casual. I felt all fancy. Said, "All right, after lunch, I'm going to costuming. I'm putting on a skipper outfit. I'm going to do a trip. I will do that joke for you and show you that it works." Because the joke is the rhinos making noise, the hyenas are making noise. It's all of this stuff. But at that one scene at the Jungle Cruise, it's the only shore that's made up of big rocks. Usually it's grass or sand, but this has all of these rocks everywhere.
Right.
And so when you come around the corner, you're looking down, look at all those rocks, and you ignore this great big huge thing. So as I pull up, I do the joke. The boat roars, and sitting way in the back was an Imagineer, and she has a clipboard, and she just gives me a thumbs up and then starts her writing. And, we get back to the dock, and they're like, "Oh, yeah, that joke works." And she came up, and she goes, "You're encouraging people to ignore a $400,000 piece of animatronics, right?" And I said, "I don't care. That joke is funny."
That's good.
I'm a sucker for, just dealing with a situation that's not going to be there every single time. Like, I was on there one time, and the skipper, we came into the hippo pool, and there was a duck basically sleeping on a hippo, on top of a hippo. So, don't worry, they're only dangerous when they blow bubbles, wiggle their ears, and have ducks on their heads. That's
Yeah.
I always like that,
Yeah, I lived for those moments. I lived to improv and come up with new stuff on the spot. It was always always fun.
That's great.
Yeah. Yeah.
So stuff like that would happen all the time, right? Like, I mean, out of the ordinary things, maybe a boat would break down or something would happen that you didn't plan on. Yeah.
Yeah. And in the beginning, I was so terrified of it. Like, what would I do? What'll I do?
Mm-hmm.
But I like to talk a lot, so I just, oh, cool, I can bust out my material. So I would have fun. Like, one of my favorite spots in the jungle was the Indiana Jones queue, because I would stop the boat and I would just insult people in line and make fun of them as they walked by. And it was always new and always something different there to make fun of. And so I would do that all the time. I don't know if you noticed, but years later, they put up a wall of bamboo plants. They're trying to... And they put that in because so many Jungle Cruise skippers would just sit there and make fun of guests who were waiting in line.
Yeah.
And they got one too many complaints, and they're like, "Yeah, okay, we gotta shut this down." Yeah,
that's funny. I didn't know that was why.
I spent a lot of, in the summer of '96, I ended up working in Indiana Jones for custodial, and then I ended up being a foreman in Adventure Frontier a lot. So I was over there a lot, and there was like a skipper who knew me who would like, point me out, and I'm in my custodial whites with my black shoes, and he would say, there's a black-footed albino rock hopper.
Yeah. Yeah, when you're walking by the execute, yeah. Oh, yeah. It's like, you guys were safe because you knew it was a joke, and you wouldn't be what are you making fun of me? Yeah, because sometimes you'd see somebody like with a jersey, like a football jersey with a big number. You're like, oh, look, that one was tagged and numbered and released back into the wild. And they're, what are you saying about me? Like, it's a joke. Calm down.
Joke, buddy. Yeah.
Because they couldn't always hear. So like custodial, other people knew it was a joke. I had a friend in college who worked custodial, and he still says it was the best job he ever had. That he was a sweeper. Mm-hmm. And he said he would just go and just think all day and just sweep. Yep. And it was like he would be in this Zen state all the time and loved it.
Yeah.
Especially once we had side packs that would hold stuff, I would keep a sketchbook in there, and I would always have a pen with me, and I would just think of something and I would just start writing it down or whatever. Because that's just my mindset. It's like, I gotta write this down or I'm gonna forget it. Yeah.
Yep.
And it could be books I wanted to buy, or it could be an idea for a joke I had, or just whatever. And when you're sweeping, it is you can get into that, especially back when you actually had slow times. You could do that because you wouldn't be interrupted for a while. You're just going about your business and yeah. But it was. If you think about it. We weren't responsible for a boatload of guests. We didn't have to make change for anybody. We didn't have to tell anybody, I'm sorry, we don't let pregnant people ride. Well, I'm not pregnant, none of that. Or, sorry, your kid's too short. We didn't have to deal with any of that. We're just out there keeping the park clean, Yeah, that can have its moments, but, there was a lot to be said for it. So,
Yeah. There's a friend of mine. He may have worked the same time. Didn't one of you start in the early 90s?
I started 1990. Yeah.
Okay. A guy that I worked, and the reason why I've been so excited to do this podcast was just to hassle a friend of mine that did work in janitorial for years. His name's David Freeman, and he is now. We were professors together at Cal State Fullerton, and I was working on this book about interviews, and I said, people would love to hear your stories. And he's like, no one wants to hear about janitors. And so I got a copy of your book. I'm like, look at this. He's like, I heard about that. He goes, I knew you were going to bring that to me. I told you.
David Freeman, was he a sweeper or a busser or night crew? Because it sounds familiar.
I have no idea. I'd have to ask him. But I think he knew one of the names, or at least was vaguely familiar with one of you. And I don't remember, he either was in the Navy and then became a sweeper, or he was a sweeper and then joined the Navy. But he's still at Cal State Fullerton. So I sent him a message. I'm like, look, I'm doing this podcast from that book I showed you. You got to.
Well, Cal State Fullerton's not a real school because I graduated from there. So It's really not a real school if they let me graduate. So
Not only did I graduate from there, they let me teach there. That's how low they've sunk. So the best part about it is I always had, cast member students. And one year I had a student that was a brand new Jungle Cruise skipper. And she showed up to the final exam in her costume. And I'm like, and she had never done that. I'm like, what's going on? She's like, I have to be at work like half hour after this final's over. Like I have to go straight there. I'm so afraid I'm going to be late. And so I messaged the head of Adventureland scheduling, who was a friend of mine. I'm like, hey, her name's Maureen. Don't let her, don't give her grief if she's late. She's taking a final. So I told her, I said, don't worry about it. I talked to Frank. And she went, you know him? I'm like, yeah. She goes, I went to call in sick once and he answered the phone and I just hung up and went in. I'm like, because his voice is so scary. I'm like, yeah, you made the right decision. Yeah, that's the right decision. But
yeah, for anyone who, people listening across the country, around the world, you've heard us mention Cal State Fullerton before. It's Fullerton is the city directly north of most of Anaheim.
Yeah.
And California State University of Fullerton, and people, for years and years and years, people have referred to it as Cal State Disneyland. So
they still do.
Yeah.
The last year that I taught there, they had a little insert in the register, and it said, "Yeah, Cal State Disneyland," and I was one of the 3 featured professors talking about Disneyland. But I was the only one that was cool enough to work there. You know how it is.
Well, unfortunately, there's so many of these now, but they're the big, terrible crime on campus many, many, many years ago was a mass shooting, right?
Yeah.
From a apparently a janitor or a former janitor. So we've expelled them from the Brotherhood of the Broom, but one of the guys we worked with at Disneyland had actually worked with that guy.
Wait, he'd been a janitor at Disneyland?
No. Somebody who was a janitor at Disneyland had been a janitor at Cal State Fullerton with that guy.
Okay, I get you.
So way back in the day, and and this it was like holy moly, because he was like, yeah, I worked with him. It's like, oh my gosh,
That's crazy. Wow. Oh, I have to tell you guys one more thing. You know what I love most about your podcast? Your logo. That's an Adventureland trash can. And let me just know, I feel the love. So thank you.
Oh, cool.
Well, I'd like to take this opportunity to tell people they should go check out. If they go to our website, they can click through to get T-shirts and masks and mugs with that very logo.
Nice.
And plenty of other great logos. So there's a shameless plug, everybody.
There you go. That's the best kind of plug.
I think it was appropriate because Ken worked in Adventureland a lot, and I also did too, between there and New Orleans, but it just seemed appropriate. So.
The best things were when we were opening on the west side. We were opening Foreman, and he would have one Adventure Frontier, and I would have New Orleans Critter, or vice versa. That was always that was pretty cool,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No. Go ahead.
I have a really weird question for you. And I listened to a few of your podcasts, and I thought this question is too obscure. But when I was there for a while in the early 2000s, it seemed like every attractions manager had one of those little trash grabbers with them. And I thought, if I was a lead or a manager in janitorial, I would be so offended if people from other departments walked around picking up, stuff.
That used to be the joke of, you're crossing union lines, like how many sweepers does it take to change a light bulb? None. We don't do that. It's crossing union line. But really, every manager has been expected to pick up stuff, all along. But, as time wore on, people said, well, someone's going to throw out their back, so let's give them these grabbers so they don't have to bend over.
Yeah.
And that became a big thing. No, but we were not ticked off about it. We were like, great, because we knew none of us, they weren't going to lay us off. We had plenty of work to do. Conversely, we'd come across like a plugged drinking fountain. And we had various tricks to unplug the drinking fountain. And one time I did that, and someone from facilities was walking by, and he said, you're going to generate a union complaint, buddy. And I'm like, I'm sorry. I just, trying to make it good for the guests out here.
Right? Yeah. That's weird. Yeah, I just remember telling a manager, I'm like, are you going to let the janitors tell us how to spiel? And his response was, well, I couldn't do worse than what you guys are already doing, and then walked away. So my attempt at giving him a hard time kind of backfired.
The Jungle Cruise has been, it's been constantly changing over the years. I mean, we're in the middle of they're about to change it again.
Yeah.
They're making a big deal out of that, but it's you go back, it's an opening day attraction, and it's seen a lot of the very nature of it is, you've got plants growing it, so it's constantly changing anyway.
Yeah.
But there's been extra scenes added. There was a little bit removed when they uncovered the Temple of Mara. They drained part of the river and moved it over.
Yeah.
But there's been a lot of changes over, and I don't know if a lot of people listening know this, but it didn't start out as a humorous thing.
Yeah.
It was more. The tone was serious. And then over the years they added some of Mark Davis's gags, and it became more of a humorous thing.
Yeah. Yeah, that's my my new project. It's actually due. It'll come out right before the Jungle Cruise movie. It's a book from Theme Park Press, and it's called The Jungle Cruise: The Wild History of Walt's Favorite Ride. And so it's I'm almost done writing it. COVID gave me an extra year, and I decided to throw in a bunch more stuff, which maybe wasn't the best idea because that gave me a lot more work to do. But I guess it'll all be good in the end, right? But most people don't realize how different the Jungle Cruise is from the day it opened. It's changed constantly, and I think almost always for the better. Yeah, it's gone through a ton of different changes.
For sure.
So glad you knew that.
That's gonna be a great book to see.
Oh yeah.
Thank you. My first two Skipper Stories books were really popular, and they were a lot of fun to do. Just interviewing skippers from every era of the park, guys that were there opening day to students of mine from Fullerton that still work there right now. I covered the gamut of everybody, so that was fun. So this is I'll do this history book and then one more Skipper Stories book, and then I'm moving on to other Disney books. I got my.
Oh my
taking
God.
over my life.
I understand.
Yeah, we get
You
it.
guys get it.
We used to get calls to come over there and take care of a boat or whatever, and sometimes it would be involved enough that they would they would take it through deadhead.
Yeah.
Well, deadhead except for us. We'd be in there wiping it down or whatever, because it's just easier than stop it. Certain cleanups, you're either going to have to pull the boat off entirely, which is much more involved.
Yeah.
Or it's going to sit there and you're going to back up and stop the whole attraction. So it's just easier just to say, okay, send it through, and we'll clean. And by the time it comes back around, it'll be all clean, and then there you go.
Yeah. Remember, during the day we would just send it, and at night we could, if we had the time, we would just send it back into boat storage to clean it. But that must have been weird, cleaning a boat while it was driving through the jungle.
Yeah.
Well, it was easier than on Pirates, because on Pirates we'd have to break out the flashlight and
oh God,
and it's like if we were really good, we could get it done before the first drop, and then the rest of the ride we're enjoying it. And of course, back in the day, if I did not, I might have to get back to my area,
Yeah.
And so what would happen is we'd be in the burning embers scene, and I would just hop out and use the exit right there. Nowadays, there's no way you would get in trouble for doing that.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah, they get you in trouble for anything now. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, but I remember seeing boats do that, usually from kids, and I had friends that worked Indy who showed me spots in the Indy queue where people regularly would send their little kids to go to the bathroom in the Bat Cave. Like right here, this is always a spot. He goes, we always had to come by and check. Yeah.
It's a long queue. It's a long ways in there. And back in the day when they actually filled the queue, I mean, now so much of it's kept outside, but you get down there and you don't realize that they've kind of, there's a restroom there that's mainly for cast members, but it's also in case of emergency. It's the semi-themed hallway, you know, and because you're out there so far from, you're pretty far from the Adventureland restroom, you know, so it's like, okay, you know, if you need to use the restroom, there's actually one right here by the loading area. You know?
Yeah.
Or you could go in the corner there and we can clean it up, you know.
Go to the Bat Cave among the stalactites. No one will ever know. Right there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Nice.
Well, what made you? Sorry,
yeah,
Lynn, I don't mean to cut you
No,
off.
go ahead.
What made you write the books?
I had been a professor for a while, and I'd written more like, you know, serious history books. And I was teaching at a school that wanted to do summer school classes, and they were looking for anything you got, any ideas. And I said, history of Disneyland. They said, great. And I said, cool. How do I teach that? And I found out there was nothing. And so I even contacted Dave Smith when he was the head archivist. And he said, there's people that do Disney studies, but he'd never heard of a class just on the history of Disneyland. And so I created that class. And then Bob from Theme Park Press approached me. And he asked me, would I write a book interviewing one skipper from each decade? And they could be like representative of that decade. And so I pitched him back. I said, let me just interview everybody, because every skipper has great stories. Even skippers that I may not have thought personally were that funny are going to have great stories. And he liked that idea. So I ran with it and just interviewed everybody who was willing to talk to me. And there were some people that were nervous for the first book. They didn't want to talk, but a lot of them showed up for the second one. They're like, cool, I want to be in it. Are you going to do another one? Can I be in it? So that's how it started. And through the History of Disneyland class, which I hope to bring back to Cal State Fullerton at some point. And it just launched from there, from the skipper books to this Jungle Cruise book to interviews with cast members all around. Because I interviewed one skipper that pulled what's got to be one of the greatest pranks I've ever heard. But he did it at the Mark Twain, not at Jungle Cruise. So he's telling me this story. I'm like, I got to use this somewhere. I thought, I'll do a cast member stories book. So that'll be, once I wrap up the skipper stuff, I'll move on to that.
Cool.
Yeah. So it's combining my training as a historian with my love of the Jungle Cruise. It's fun to think, you know, something that I love so much, being able to write about it. It's just been a blast. A happy surprise.
So speaking of like goofing around and pranks and stuff, people love hearing stories about that. So do you have anything that you remember that stuck out? Yeah,
a bunch of like random things. I had one where a celebrity kind of threw me off my game by accidentally. You know, Billy Idol, the rock and roller from the 80s, Billy Idol?
Yeah.
He was on my boat, and I did this joke that was one of my jokes, where you're coming to the waterfall and you make a quick right-hand turn, and I would say, lean to the right, it's okay, it's Orange County, you can lean to the right in Orange County. And I did that joke, and I remember thinking, he's not going to get it, he's from England. And I turned around, and he was leaning over to his group, just like leather jacket, Billy Idol, stick him up hair and everything, like a punker, and he's leaning over, and this is what he said. He goes, Orange County's like Margaret Thatcher. It's like the Tories, very conservative. And he's like explaining the history of Orange County. And I drove by both elephants just listening to him talk and explain it. And then I realized, I should be driving this boat and talking.
Yeah.
I was just fascinated by that. And one of my other favorite pranks happened at the Indy queue. It was because, you know, Indiana Jones breaks down a lot. Mm-hmm. And it was one of those days where it had been down for like an hour and a half, and everybody comes to Jungle Cruise, and it was the summer, and nobody wants to be on your boat. They're just waiting to kill time to get on Indy. So it'd been a while, and we were all kind of sick of these people on our boats that basically hated it. And I pull up to the Indy queue, and I do my setup, and then punchline. And when I do the punchline, the whole boat goes, because as I said my punchline, they dropped the ropes and started letting people into the ride. They just reopened it. And this is not a good Walt moment, but I kind of lost my temper. I said, and I stopped the boat completely. I said, oh, look at that line. That line is getting longer and longer and longer. You guys are just sitting here. Look at that. You're like 8 feet away. Man, by the time you get off this boat, that line's going to be like an hour long at least.
Who
Look
are
how
you,
close
what are you, Andy Kaufman?
Yeah. Oh my God, he's one of my comedy idols. You win. So I just sat there and like let them just like feed on it till I almost got hit by a boat coming through the rainforest. So I rub it into him for a good like 2 minutes, just give him a hard time, and I hit the throttle and I do a joke. You know, I instantly forget what I've just done to these people. And I do a joke, I turn, I'm like, why aren't they laughing? And all of them just could have killed me with their eyes. They were so mad. And every joke I tried, they just got angrier. So I just floored it. And usually I took slow boats. And the more you laughed, the slower I went. I think I got them out of there in like 8 minutes. I just floored it. I'm like, there you go. Please don't talk to my manager. Have a good time. So, yeah, thank you for calling that my Andy Kaufman moment, because that's he's one of my comedy idols, much to my wife's chagrin.
That's great.
Yeah, but we were always up to something. It was just a lot of fun. Yeah.
What would you do if there was a boat where they just weren't, they just weren't laughing? It was kind of just a boring audience or guest, with you.
The fun thing about working there is when people were loading on the boat, you had like 45 seconds to a minute where you could try to figure out what they were going to laugh at. So you'd throw out different types of jokes. And I would give them to like the Cambodian shrine to laugh at something, because I would keep trying different things. And usually it was the middle of the day in summer, they were just hot and tired, and this was a place to sit in the shade. And if I couldn't get them by the elephant pool, then I would speed up and kind of blow through the rest of the ride.
Oh, yeah.
But sometimes it was a whole boat full of people that didn't speak English, and there's nothing you could do.
Right.
You didn't have to talk as much, which was kind of nice sometimes. But I took it as like a personal challenge to get those boats to listen. Maybe that was my years of being a teacher coming through, but I'm like, oh, no, you're going to listen. I'm going to find something you're going to laugh at. And if I have to get, in trouble with managers to make it happen, it's going to happen. So, yeah, it was, I told my trainees, you can't ever give up. You got to try something to keep them, to hook them in. And yeah.
Well, speaking of, you mentioned, Billy Idol. Was there any other celebrities you got to have on your boat?
Not that I really had on my boat. No, it was weird that I saw a lot of them, but never had them on my boat. I almost had Robin Williams on my boat. I was at the in-between, and I had the biggest lunch of my life, to the point where I physically hurt. And I walked back to the dock, and I put my hand on the dock, and I'm like, oh my God, I don't feel good. I ate too much. But I was getting ready to bump back in, and a manager comes and puts his arm around me and goes, hey, I want you to take this group right over here. And I looked over, and I just saw a group of people with a plaid. So I knew it was somebody, and I'm like, I can't be funny for another trip. I feel so sick. It's going to take me a while. He's like, I really want you to take this boat. And I didn't catch the clue because I'm not that smart. I'm like, no, I can't. I'm not funny. He's like, okay. And I got in my boat and pulled it forward. And then I watched him get in the boat behind me and sit down. And the skipper looked and turns around and looks at me. He's like, oh my God. Said he was nice and funny, but yeah, I don't know if I would have given him a great trip, because I was bloated on there in between macaroni and cheese, I think it was.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
How intimidating that would have been,
Right?
have Robin Williams.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that would have been very intimidating. Although at Jungle Cruise, we spent most of our time trying to impress each other. So what you said at the dock was where we would work the hardest. At getting off the boat, we would try to do stuff just to make your friends laugh. So we would do the wildest stuff at the dock where managers and everybody could hear us. And then in the jungle, we might mellow out a bit, but we were focused on having all of our friends think we were funny.
See,
Would you usually get like 8-hour shifts? 6-8-hour shifts, right?
Yeah. It was usually 8 hours, which was a lot. My least favorite one was the midday shift, where you get there like at 11 or noon when it's super busy, and then you're just there during the busiest time of the day, and then you go home.
Yeah.
those mid shifts were terrible, because there's like 11 or 11:30 or whatever. You can't do anything before. You can't do anything after.
Yeah. Right? It's your whole day. And I've interviewed like over 100 skippers, and I've only met one that liked working day shifts better. All of them liked working night shifts the best because it's mellower, it's not as crowded, and you can do a whole different set of jokes at night. And the one skipper that liked the day, I'm like, why is that? That's fascinating. He's like, oh, because I had a social life. I wanted to go out at night. I wasn't going to work.
Yeah.
He goes, I was done at 5. I was out the door. I'm like, oh, all right. Good for you.
My wife and I had a running joke about how the Jungle Cruise is better at night because I had set up, I was going to propose to her. We were spending the day at Disneyland. I was going to propose to her, but I had the timing all set up so that a friend of mine who she wouldn't recognize was going to be there videotaping. Because this is before cell phone, before smartphones.
Yeah.
Had to be, an actual video camera.
Yeah.
And I had the timing all set up. I'm trying to maneuver, and we were like walking through Adventureland. She goes, we're getting close to the time, right? Because it has to be over by Snow White Wishing Well, because and it has to be when Snow White's going to be there. And
yep.
And she goes, what's going on in the Jungle Cruise? And I go, I'm trying to think. I'm like, no, because there's really no long line for it this day and everything. And I'm like, no, let's do that late. It's better at night. And she's like, what? So that became a running joke for us for years after. It's like, Jungle Cruise is better at night.
Yeah. And it is. Oh, yeah.
There you go.
That is.
How about, did you have to work grad nights?
Yes. Oh, God. Did you guys have to work grad nights?
No. Well, till like 1:30.
Because we have night crew. That was another benefit of Another benefit of custodial was having night crew.
Okay.
Because they're going to work from, they typically would work from like midnight to 8:30 in the morning.
Yeah.
So we had a built-in crew for grad nights because of course for them it's a completely different thing. They're used to working around without guests around.
Yeah.
But we would work on the close reopen, and then we would leave, and they would take over. So
lucky. Grad nights were so tough. The first couple hours were just a nightmare, and then they all wanted to sleep. And I remember my very first grad night I ever worked. The first boat I had, these two girls were just screaming obscenity from rival high schools. We're just screaming obscenities at each other, and they were threatening to fight each other. And like their guys were, but it was like a fight on my boat with screaming and cussing. So I floored it, and I get to the dock, and I'm like, everybody out. And the girl's like, you didn't even do one joke. I'm like, get out, everybody out. I thought, I can't do this. I can't watch high school kids like try to kill each other and scream and cuss and yell. So I pull up to load for my second boat of the night, and I crack one joke, and they all start laughing. And these guys laughed at every single thing I said. And when I got back to the dock, they gave me a standing ovation, and a bunch of the kids came over to get their picture with me. And I got off the boat because it was rotated out. And the manager comes over. He's like, how's your first night going? And I went, I don't know. And it's still one of the worst boats I've ever had and one of the best boats I ever had. And I didn't do anything different, literally back to back. So after doing a couple grad nights, I started giving them to rookies. I would like trick them. I would do the whole Tom Sawyer, Huck Finn thing. I'd be like, hey, I'm going to do you a favor. I'm going to let you work grad night, but you owe me. I said, at grad night, it's more mellow. You get to eat and drink on the dock. The rules don't apply, but you're going to owe me. They're like, oh, thanks, Dave, thanks. I'm like, all right. And I got rid of all of them. But we did send a boat through the jungle once without anybody in it. That was fun on a grad night. The lead, we turned on the outside lights and we just sent it. And then we could kind of see the lights going through the jungle. And as it's coming around Trader Sam to the dock, wouldn't you know it, a manager walks up. And the lead turns around and he goes, Mr. Mayor, he goes, get the boat. And he puts his arm around the manager and spins around. And he's like, oh, come with me. We have a guest concern at the Tiki Room. And they walked away. And one of my other skippers was like, the Tiki Room isn't open tonight. I'm like, yeah, but the manager doesn't remember. We'll have the boat stopped by then. So we hopped on the boat and stopped it. And yeah, but it was, and one night I didn't work. They took off they had one boat running. and there was a 45-minute wait for the Jungle Cruise on a grad night, and they did it just to see if they could. And so one skipper would just take turns doing one trip, and managers came by and said, I remember he goes, "That's funny. You got to bring more boats out though, because they were all having a break."
Oh my gosh!
Yeah, so that was a constant. It was fun to be there because it was just constant chaos and trying to top each other with what you could do and what you could get away with. It was a lot of fun. Yeah.
Did you ever get to explore the jungle like on foot?
All the time. Now I know it's completely illegal, but we called going on safari, and I would go have lunch out there. I would sit above Schweitzer Falls and have lunch, or I would just take my, because it was neat to be. It's summer. It's the middle of the day. There's 80,000 people in the park, and I'm all alone in this little garden spot with no noise, just waterfall noise. And I used to bring my camera and take a lot of pictures, and it helped me. I got to learn the jungle really well and where you could run and hide and stuff you could do. So we pulled a lot of pranks out there. But yeah, we went out a lot, and I made sure my trainees went out there so they knew where stuff was for safety reasons, and then later for prank reasons. But
I was able to ride in a group. This is before social networking and everything, and we were a computer group that were Disney fans, and
okay.
The skipper was part of our group, so we all arranged we would fill the boat, and he would take us around. And there was also another skipper who was in our group who was working that night. So we get around to the dancing natives, and there's the other skipper dancing with the natives, right?
Yeah.
So the one piloting our boat takes out his gun and shoots him.
That is awesome.
And we were all cheering because we're just having a fun time, But
yeah. There's a story in my first Skipper Stories book from a friend of mine. This happened one of his grad nights. He was still a high school student, but working at Disneyland his first year. He ended up working there like 6 years or so, and was a lead at Adventureland, like at Indian at Jungle. But he comes around to the Velt scene where the lion is, and the rhinos and everything. And it's his first grad night, and he's like 17 or 18. And as he pulls up to where the lions are, he sees a skipper come up from behind the rock with 2 pistols. And then another skipper shows up with 2 pistols. So there's 3 skippers with a pistol in each hand, and they just unload all of their guns at him while he's got a boat full of guests. And he said he just screamed and threw the microphone in the air and hit the deck. And then throttle forward, and he said it scared the hell out of me. And when I got back to the dock, there was our lead, a manager, and 2 Disneyland security and a member of the Anaheim PD were on the dock when he came up to the dock.
Yeah, because the shots mean things, right?
Yep. And what was interesting is the manager. It wasn't the lead, but the manager. Would cover for a lot of Jungle Cruise craziness. And so when they pulled up to the dock, Benny was terrified. And the manager leans over and goes, "Hey, these guys said they heard gunfire, but I think it was firecrackers, don't you?" And winked at him. And my friend goes, "Yes, it was firecrackers. Kids were throwing firecrackers." And as they're all talking, behind the cop, behind the security guard, behind the manager, come the 3 skippers, each holding their pistols, and they stick them back in the cabinet and close the cabinet.
Oh, no.
And they didn't even, if they had just turned around. So Benny's like, I made sure they were all looking at me and talking while they walked right behind them, because they didn't even check to see if the guns were missing. So, yeah. So I was trained that that's normal, and that what happened in the jungle stayed in the jungle. And if you saw something, you just went with it and had fun with it and didn't tell managers. And I don't know what you're talking. I didn't see anything. So that became standard. I've been told it's not that way anymore, but that's the way it was first.
Yeah, I mean, everywhere in the park used to be more freewheeling. I mean,
yeah.
I mean, there were times the parade crew, we had a group of sweepers that they were there to clean up after the parades. Well, before the parades, after the parades, the whole setup. But there were other things they could do between parades or between shows.
Yeah. And
one of the things we did was we took a pickup truck that we had, and we had a couple of the big diesel powered vacuums. And we just hung them off the back of the pickup truck. We sat facing backwards, and we went and vacuumed up Schumacher Road from all the leaves. And actually, there was a guy leaning out of the passenger window of the truck with a blower, a gas blower, so he could blow the leaves away from the side of Schumacher Road so that the vacuums would get it. And this meant that anybody driving behind us was going to have to drive around us, and which could be a little dangerous.
Yeah.
And afterwards, our lead said, "All right, I'm going to buy you all drinks here in between, but we're going to kind of keep this quiet." Stuff like that we would just never do now.
Yeah. Well, that's awesome. You were helping. You weren't causing trouble. You weren't shooting off guns randomly where you weren't supposed to. So
right, it was cleaning up so that the leaves wouldn't accumulate and clog the drains and all that sort of thing.
Exactly. You're making the park a more magical place.
That's right.
Yeah. That's awesome.
So yeah, I know. So it's not just Jungle Cruise where stuff used to be a little bit more freewheeling and now it's a little bit more strict, and it's. Yeah. I mean, it's just kind of the nature of things in general. I don't think it's just Disneyland, but it there with the liabilities and state regulation and workplace safety and all that stuff, it just becomes a situation where you don't want to have to explain how somebody got hurt.
Yeah.
It's like, what? Well, why weren't you sticking with the standard operating procedure?
Yeah. Yeah. Right. Yeah. Yeah. At certain points, it got to a Jungle Cruise. If you're not facing forward, it's a safety. And wait, I was going to turn around and do a joke. No, in this zone, you have to face forward, or it's a safety warning, a safety violation. And so that happened after I left, where they just got really, I think, a little overboard with it, where they forgot, all right, with common sense, where the boats are ahead of you, and where to look and when to be safe. Mm-hmm. And they're doing it just to prevent anything happen. Well, nothing's happened. I know, but we're going to prevent anything from ever happening. Oh, okay. Oh, well. Yeah. But in my book, I have a chapter on what happened at the Jungle Cruise in the 1970s. And I'm stunned these guys didn't go to prison. It was amazing, the stuff they got. Jumping off of Schweitzer Falls and in full view of guests, and just like doing all kinds of crazy things, like constantly. The 1970s. It was. I thought my era was wild, and we had nothing on what was happening there in the 70s. They were out of control, and it was neat to interview these guys. Some of whom are now grandpas, talking about what they would do back in the day.
Yeah. That's so cool.
Yeah.
So during that time you were on Jungle Cruise, did you also get scheduled somewhere else, or were you just Jungle Cruise mainly?
Flat out refused to work anywhere else. I worked Jungle, and I worked the Tiki Room, and that was it. I think it's because I even told the managers, I'm a professor during the day. I don't want to measure kids. I don't want to say you're not tall enough, or are you pregnant? I don't want to do any of that. I'm here to, makes me not a great cast member, but I'm here to have fun and bring joy and not have to grade exams. And that's why I'm here. So they wanted to train me at Indy and at Thunder and all that. And I kept telling them no. And one manager goes, well, what if Indy just shows up on your schedule? What would you do then? I said, well, I'd probably have a panic attack and be unable to complete the training. And I smiled, and he looked at me and goes, you would do that, wouldn't you? And I said, oh yeah, I can guarantee day one, I'd have a pretty bad panic attack. You guys weren't affected by landlocking, were you?
Not really.
No, we were scheduled. We were there. We would get moved everywhere. It's different now, but
yeah,
at the time, I mean, now what would happen is somebody would get enough seniority, and they would say, "I want to work." There'd be A's who would say, "Yeah, I always want this shift in this land," and that's where they would work, and that's it. But
yeah.
As I got more seniority, I would say, look, these are the area I'd say I want to work in the park. I don't want to work the parking structure, and these are the areas I want to work. And, if you can't give me a lead shift during the day, then give me, a regular shift or whatever,
Yeah. huh. Well, they started this thing called landlocking, where if you were in Adventureland, Frontierland, you only could work rides in that land, or Tomorrowland, or like New Orleans. And so they really wanted me to have more than one attraction because they were going to shut Jungle down for a while. And I said, well, this was before landlocking. I said, okay, I'll do canoes. And the guy goes, you can't have canoes. I go, well, he goes, you can't. What else? I said,
Jeez.
pirates? He goes, you can't have pirates. I'm like, why? He goes, I'm not allowed to tell you, but you can't have them.
Oh.
I went, did I do something? He said, no, you'll find out soon enough, but it's not you. And then when they announced the landlocking policy to everybody, he called me over. He goes, see, he goes, if I trained you at canoes, you would have worked there one shift before you were stuck back in Adventureland. So when we started landlocking, my only options were the steam trains, which I said I would do, but there were never any openings on. But steam trains, Indy, Thunder, and that was really it. And everyone I know that worked at Indy just did not like it. And they really wanted me to work there. And I said, that's why I knew about the guys chasing behind the cars as they drove around, picking up stuff that people would drop. Because I had a lot of friends that were leads and trainers and stuff there. So I would go over there and hang out, but I would never, ever work there. Yeah, and they even knew that I didn't like parade shifts or Phantasmic shifts. If I was scheduled one, the local area schedulers would switch me with somebody else. Like they got to know, okay, David hates working anything but jungle. Let's stick him in the jungle and we'll give this parade shift to somebody who likes it. I got to the point, if they called me, hey, can you come in? I came in early or on my day off or whatever, so that when I needed to not work a parade shift or Phantasmic, they would hook me up, and they always did. So I got to be known as the guy that just wanted jungle. Put him there and he's happy. Loved it. Yeah, but canoes would have been fun.
Well, the schedulers, they were the people that you wanted to be in good with. So
right. Yeah.
Plus they had our social security numbers memorized.
And it was the local, like your area. The Adventureland schedulers were awesome. The main schedulers, I thought, were just evil on purpose.
Yeah.
When I worked there in '96, I only had night shifts because I was a newbie. So you get the 4-hour or 6-hour night shifts at Jungle,
right.
And I had a final coming up, and it was in the late afternoon. But I said, you know what? I'm going to put for that day off just to make sure I have that day off for that final exam. And that one day they gave me a training at some video game in Tomorrowland that started at the time I asked to be off. And I asked for this day off, I worked there for 6 months. It was the only day shift I was ever given. And I said, I have an exam that day. And I swear to God, the manager goes, well, you need to think about what's more important to you, your career at Disney or your college. I said, well, in 3 months, I'm starting to work on my PhD in history, so I'm going to go ahead and say my college career is more important.
Yep,
and so I called in for that shift. I'm like, it was to work a video game, to take kids' quarters and put them in a machine and strap them in. And I'm like, no, I'm not going to get paid to do that for a living. And so they wanted to train me on it later. I'm like, no, I'm not happening. Jungle Cruise and that. Yeah, I'm not doing that.
That is a trap that people fall into. Some cast members will fall into there, where it's like, oh, I need more hours, because they've got to support them. Often it's a matter of they really need the money. Yeah. And then it's like it gets to the point where their studies suffer. And I was fortunate enough not to. I mean, I had lean times, but I would not let my studies suffer. Because I said, look, this is I don't want to be an hourly cast member the rest of my life. At least not relying on it. If I could come in and do it like a couple days a week, I'd love it. But
right,
I don't want to rely on this the rest of my life. So I've got to put my education as first. And fortunately, I was able to do that. Yeah,
and I was up in the Adventureland office, and a young girl came by just sobbing. And sat down in the break room. And so, I don't know, I was feeling fatherly. I walked over to her, I'm like, what's wrong? She said, I wanted this time off and they said I should just quit, but I have school. I'm like, well, do you want to work here forever? Like, no. Then tell him you're taking the day off to take your exam. But she was stressed. Well, they want me here all the time, but I have this final exam. I'm like, trust me, take the final exam. They don't care about your education. They want you here, and that's all. But you got to focus on school. And that, I didn't. Those arguments didn't work with me real well. Sometimes I think I was more trouble than I was worth to the poor managers. I think after a while, they kind of like let me do what I wanted. They're like, all right, David's, he's in his 30s. He thinks he's super smart. Just let him do what he wants, because he's just going to be a pain in the ass if you don't let him. I'll sit him down and explain them the history of something and how it works and how, I was a problem. I was a problem child.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I loved it. Best job I ever had.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, can you think of any other stories that you want to tell that you think our listeners would enjoy hearing?
God. Yeah. I don't know where to.
Well, he wrote books. I mean, come on.
I know.
People can get the books.
My first Skipper Stories book is I think a quarter to a third of it are my own stories that I was always telling my daughters all the wild stories at Disney, and they always kept wanting to hear them. So I thought I should write this down one day, and then that's when I got approached to write the book. So that first one's got a lot of my stories in it. Every once in a while, a new one will pop up that I like, or someone will remind me of something that I said. I found out that I'm still famous at Jungle Cruise for one event that I didn't think was that big of a deal. I can tell you this story. There's two positions where you load people onto the boat, near the front of the boat or the back of the boat. And I was loading at the back of the boat, and you still have to hold people and let them in the boat and get them to walk around the engine to the front. So this family was the first group to get on the boat, and I had to get them to walk to the front. So they walk on the boat, and he sits right at the door, right in the back of the boat, and he won't move. And I'm still holding onto his arm, and I'm like, sir, could you stand up, please, and go to the front? It's great to sit in the front, but please go sit in the front. And he looks at me and says, I am French. I can sit wherever I want. And so I said, win one war, and you can sit wherever you want to. Now move it. And he stood up with his family, and they walked to the front.
Oh, no.
And I didn't think anything about it. It's a history joke. And I look up, and the other guy loading at the front, you face each other for safety reasons. And he looks at me, and he just mouths, you are so fired. And we just keep loading the boat. And he's like, man, this is your last day. And he starts telling other people. And I'm like, what? No, that's not true. And so when the boat leaves, he's going to complain. I said, nah, he's French. He's not going to complain about it. And he didn't. So, but the next day I came back and everyone knew the story. Yeah. And I tell you one more quick one. You can edit it out if you want.
Yeah. No, it's fine.
There was I interviewed a friend of mine that may or may not still work for the company at a different level, but he'd had an interaction with this manager that we didn't like, who also still works at the park. And he gave this guy a nickname. And so I interviewed this guy for Skipper Stories. I'm like, so the nickname that you gave to this manager, and he told me this story about why he nicknamed this guy the enemy of fun, this one manager. So he tells me this story about how he nicknamed this guy the enemy of fun. I said, cool. Now, how did that spread around the jungle? And he just looks at me like I'm an idiot. And I'm like, wait, what's the story? He went, I only told one person that I called him the enemy of fun. I'm like, okay, well, who was that person? He goes, it was you moron. He goes, I had a day shift, you had a night shift. We met at Harbor Point. I told you the story that I called him the enemy of fun. I'm like, okay. He goes, I came back the next morning for my shift. Everybody in Adventureland was calling him the enemy of fun. And he goes, you told everybody. It's like, thank God I didn't take credit for saying it. I didn't give him credit because I figured, he'd get in trouble. But the last time I was at the park, I saw this guy and I told my daughters, guys, that's the enemy of fun. So he's got a couple pages of stories about him in the book, and he probably doesn't even know that that's his nickname. That I unwittingly, great. So if you want a secret, don't tell me, or tell me to keep it secret. If you don't, I'm going to tell everybody if I think it's funny, is I guess the lesson there.
Very good. So where can people find your kind of plug your books? I know you have 2
Sure,
now,
yeah.
right?
I actually have an Etsy store where I sell my books. I autograph them. I sell a lot of art that's based on the Jungle Cruise and Disneyland because I'm a man of very limited interests. So you can go to Etsy. My store is Dr. Skipper because I'm a skipper and a doctor. So they gave me that nickname. See how clever they are? So you can follow me on Instagram on Dr. Skipper Marley, Marley, like Bob Marley. But Dr. Skipper Marley on Instagram, or my Etsy store at Dr. Skipper. And I have copies of my Skipper Stories books and tiki carvings and Jungle Cruise signs that I make. And my new book called The Jungle Cruise, The Wild History of Walt's Favorite Ride comes out this July from Theme Park Press. And it'll be available everywhere. Amazon, Etsy, all kinds of places. My mom will probably be selling copies. Everybody will have one. Yeah.
Great.
That's my shameless plug.
No, that's good. Well, thanks for coming on, David. I
Thank
appreciate
you.
it.
I was so looking forward to this. When you guys asked me, I'm like, oh, that's great. You're like, how about mid-April? I'm like, oh, okay. So I've been looking forward to this night. This is a lot of fun.
Okay, well, that concludes episode 307.
Wow.
I know.
What a show.
Yeah, had a lot of fun talking with David. Thank you so much for coming on. It's always fun to have the skippers on our show,
Yeah, I mean, it's really good to get, an inside scoop on what it was like to be a skipper, since neither one of us did that,
Yeah, and it was fun because David was there when we were working there, so kind of that same timer. So yeah, hope you enjoyed that show. Check out our website. We always plug it, but there's you can get both our books over there, links to our T-shirts.
You really should have it bookmarked because there's, especially if you haven't checked out the shirts and mugs and all that stuff, you really should click through and check that because there's some really great designs, and I think a lot of you haven't even seen them,
No, but yeah, they're really good. So check that out. We hope to, we're gonna have our mini episode next week, and we're gonna have our bonus shows coming up in the next week or so. So get that, sign up for the Patreon. Don't miss out on this month's bonus show, and that'd be cool. So tell a friend, leave a review too, and we'll read it on our show on iTunes, Apple Podcasts, or wherever it is now that you use. Through Apple. I think it's iTunes. If
any place you find podcasts where you see the sweep spot, leave a review.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. All right. Well, thank you for listening, and we'll talk with you next time.